My name is Ache, and I just want to start by saying thank you so much for tuning in. It really means a lot to me. I hope you enjoy this episode, and who knows, maybe you can relate. Okay, so I want to talk about the first time I ever experienced true freedom. It was the summer before grade 8. I was 12 years old, and my mom told me I was going to spend the entire 2 months of summer in Cuba. I remember feeling excited, but also nervous because my Spanish was not very good, and I also hadn't been away from my mom for such a long period of time before. My mom did come with me, but after 2 weeks, she left, and I was in Cuba without my English to Spanish translator. For those who don't know, my entire mom's side of the family is in Cuba and is still in Cuba. So during this time, I was staying at my grandmother's house, and there was a day right before my mom left where one of my aunts forced my cousin to take me to her graduation luncheon. Now, mind you, me and my cousin, we were close, but we weren't super close. I didn't really know anything personal about her, and I didn't know any of her friends. And again, my Spanish wasn't really good, so it would have been super awkward. And I'm sure she felt like she was forced to babysit me. And as a preteen, I'd feel the same way too. But yeah, I go to this graduation luncheon, celebration, whatever, and I had the most fun ever. Okay. My cousin's friends were so nice to me. The music was so good. I was crushing on all the boys. And most importantly, that day was the beginning of a beautiful friendship between me and my cousin. And also the beginning to the best summer ever. Usually, when I would go to Cuba growing up, I'd only ever go for the winter break. So this was my first time being there in the summertime. So I got to experience carnival over there for the first time, and it was honestly life-changing because I had only ever experienced Caravana here in Toronto. So this was such a culture shock for me because it was so different to what I was used to. I got to learn about what a comparsa is, and basically it's just a group of street dancers and drummers performing up and down the streets almost every day leading up to carnival. I was out dancing till 5 or 6 in the morning. I felt so connected to my Cuban side, and it was such a beautiful thing to experience, especially at such a young age. That same summer, I also went to my first Cuban baseball game, and the Cienfuegos team, Los Elefantes, won that game. So it was very fun, and it was a very special game to watch. FYI, Cienfuegos is where my family's from. But anyway, I was just gallivanting every day, all the time. I felt like a grown woman. I even had my first kiss on that trip. Okay, little old 12-year-old me was living her very best life. So much so that I had to run it back and spend the summer of 2014 over there again. And let me tell you, Cuba 2014 was the best year for music, movies, and just a fun time in general. I am so happy I went that year. That trip planted a seed in my head that stuck with me forever. I needed to see more. I needed to learn more. I needed to experience more. I know what freedom feels like today because of that trip 13 years ago. I was given the opportunity to experience a life that was so different than mine. I was learning so much about the culture and the history, which helped me learn more about myself and my family. It made me love my background even more, and it humbled me because I was so out of my comfort zone. No phone, no internet, no endless TV channels. All I had was my DS, a digital camera, and vibes. I learned how to enjoy the little things that life has to offer. I learned so many new things that I would have never had the opportunity to learn here in Canada as a 12-year-old. And that is the power of travel and adventure. Now, why am I telling you all this? Well, it's because I want to encourage you to get out of your comfort zone, open your mind, and to explore. This world is too big for you not to go and see it. Kai Sanat, an extremely famous streamer, recently went to Nigeria, and I watched his vlog of when he landed. And if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend. Okay, first of all, it was so refreshing to see a travel vlog that wasn't all about parties and resorts and big houses and lavish living, specifically when people visit Nigeria. Now, I don't know what the other vlogs look like, but the one I saw didn't show any of that. This video showed the people, the music, the food, and it showed a side of Nigeria that's not usually shown to the media. Kai, being one of the most famous people in the world right now, did his research and made it a point to educate his viewers on how the other side lives. I'm going to actually link the video in the caption because it was such a nice video to watch, and I highly recommend you guys go and take a look at that. But yeah, that vlog reminded me of how much I learned about the world through travel. Well, not only about the world, but about myself as well. I may not be a crazy traveler that's been to 100 different places, but I've been blessed with opportunities to see and experience different parts of the world. Travel for me is deeper than just a relaxing time. I mean, don't get me wrong, okay? I love relaxing on vacation, laying down by the beach, sipping on some ice cold water, and just listening to the waves. But I want to encourage you to do more. I promise that when you take the time to learn a little bit about where you're going, you will appreciate it 1,000 times more. I want to talk about the 3 biggest things I learned through travel. Number 1, if a situation is out of your control, find something you can control. When living in the Western world, it is so easy to get caught up in the bigger picture and what's in the distance, and we tend to forget about what's happening right now and about what's right in front of us. I'm so happy that I got to experience Cuba growing up because Cuba is not the same anymore. So many people I know have left because of how difficult things are over there. I'm not too sure about other parts of Cuba, but in Cienfuegos, where my family is from, they turn off the electricity randomly in the day, and it makes it impossible for people to do things. My aunt told me the other day that they only had power for 2 hours. 2 hours! On top of that, food is extremely expensive and very limited. I went to Cuba in 2020 and I asked my grandma to make me a cake. She laughed in my face. She's like, ¿con qué? With what? Because there's no ingredients. They had to go to a different city just to buy me eggs to eat for breakfast. This is Cuba right now. But every time I go, I see people making the most of a tough situation. People listening to music in the streets, people drinking and having a good time, kids playing in the streets. I'm not even trying to get emotional right now because it's so hard seeing your family have to go through these things. But they taught me how to make the most of any situation. Although, your problems may not be the same as their problems, the premise is the same. They cannot control their environment, but they can control how they choose to live in it. Take control of what you can and make the most out of the life that you have. I couldn't have learned that anywhere else. Number 2, learning about where you come from will help you develop a deeper understanding of who you are. Enough about Cuba. Let's talk about Grenada, okay? My dad was born and raised in Grenada, and unlike my Cuban side where my entire family is still back home, I don't have much family that still lives in Grenada. Everyone is spread out around the world right now. So I didn't grow up going to Grenada. I didn't grow up knowing anything really about Grenada. I went once when I was 9, but then I went last year in August. And let me tell you something about being in Grenada, okay? Being there made me so upset that I didn't grow up coming here. Prior to going on this trip, I couldn't tell you anything about Grenada other than where my family is from, which is Guave. But now, I feel even closer to my Grenadian side because of that trip. I got to experience Carnival and fully immerse myself in the culture. I mean, yeah, sure, I've been to a bunch of fetes and a 1-2 Juve here in Toronto, but it is nothing like what I experienced in Grenada. That energy is so different. Honestly, I'm just so happy that I didn't feel uncomfortable being there because honestly, I was just kind of, I don't know, it's like I was just so in my head about it, but I honestly felt like I belonged and I felt like I was home. I got to try different foods that I'm not used to having because I've always lived with my mom. I got to stay in the house that my father grew up in and lived in. I walked the streets that my sister walked when she was younger. I got to feel the energy of Jab Jab and fully immerse myself in it. I developed a deeper understanding of the island and I grew a stronger connection to it. Speaking of stronger connection, for all my Black brothers and sisters out there, please go and visit Africa. Put it on your bucket list today. Pick a country in Africa and go over there. Preferably a country in West Africa because that's where the most amount of slaves came from. Because going to Nigeria was so emotional for me. Even today when I talk about it, it still triggers something in me that just makes me so emotional. When I was there, all I can think was, wow, this is what they took away from us. This is where my ancestors are from. I'm in the motherland. What am I doing here? I, I look at pictures of when I was in Nigeria and I'm just like, what was I doing in Nigeria? Like, that is so crazy. It's actually so funny to me. I don't know, but I'm just so happy I had the opportunity to go. Like, shout out Dami and her family for really taking care of me on that trip, because that's a trip I never thought I'd go on. And I'm just so blessed to have that experience. When I was there, everyone kept telling me, welcome home. And I was so geeked, like, yes, thank you. I'm happy to be back. It was such a surreal feeling knowing the history of your people and going to where it all happened. It's heavy, but it's almost beautiful because it made us who we are today. But yeah, every Black person should go at least once in their lifetime. That's just my opinion. But anyway, number 3, life is short. Try something new and just have fun. When I went to Mexico for the very first time, I did an excursion where we were on this boat and it was like 10 other people, and we passed by a little island that was filled with monkeys. And I was very young the first time I went to Mexico, but that memory is engraved in my head forever. Monkeys have always been my favorite animal, so getting to see that was one of my biggest highlights in my life at the time. There are so many experiences that you are missing out on because of fear. Fear that it'll be a waste of money or a waste of time, or maybe it's something else, I don't know. And I'm not only talking about travel, because I'm very much aware of the fact that not everybody has the opportunities like we do here in the West to travel. But I'm talking about life. So what I'm talking about is not only fear of going somewhere new, but it's the fear that so many of us experience when talking about life, when experiencing life, living, if that makes sense. I don't know. Traveling somewhere far away is not the only way that you can experience new things, and it shouldn't be. When was the last time you tried something new for the very first time? I'll wait. Seriously, think about it. If you add getting older with never experiencing or exploring the world, it becomes much harder to answer that question. I looked up how many hours does the average person work in their lifetime, and the answer was 90,000 hours. 90,000 hours. That's about 10 years. A whole decade. A decade dedicated to working. With all the hours that you put into working, don't you think you deserve to put in just as much, if not more, time into trying to enjoy the life that you have? And look, I'm a student that has bills to pay, so traveling abroad is not something I can just be doing all the time. But it will not stop me from seeking a new adventure, especially in the summertime, okay? Toronto in the summer is so much fun. Like, I genuinely look forward to summers in Toronto because it's just lively. And yes, some of these things cost money, but there are so many other things that you can do that are new to you that are free. And I promise you, traveling and adventures are worth the investment of your money and your time. I promise you will most likely get your money's worth and your time's worth, and the experience will stick with you forever. If you can't travel, that's fine, but I encourage you to look for something new to do. Learn about a place outside of your own. Go to a festival that's about a different culture. If you're from Toronto, we have Afrofest, Salsa on St. Clair, Taco Fest. What else? We have Caravana. There's a bunch. There's a bunch of other cultures and communities that are so open to teaching you about life outside of your own. Just get out there. The world is too big. There are certain things you will never know about yourself if you don't put yourself out there. For example, I've always wondered if my true calling in life was something that I've never even tried before. Like, what if I'm actually really good at archery? I wouldn't know the answer to that unless I actually try it. But if getting out there is too much for you, I completely understand, okay? Putting yourself out there to try new things can be scary and it's not for everybody. But you can also find adventure through literature and film. I don't like to read, and it's something that I'm trying to get better at. But I know some readers that get so wrapped up in their books that it feels like they're in another place. I personally don't know what that experience is like, but it sounds great. Not only can you escape in a great book, but you can also learn a lot from the comfort of your own home. My whole point is that you can explore within your means. There is no need to put yourself in extreme debt just to experience something different. But yeah, I hope I've encouraged you to go somewhere new or to at least try something new. And if you're in a group chat that is always planning trips and talking about wanting to go here and there, but it never happens, send this episode to the group chat. And hopefully this can convince them of the importance of traveling, especially with people you care about, because there's a lot to learn, there's a lot to see, and there's a lot to do. So within your means, do what you can, and I hope you can relate. This is the Maybe You Can Relate Songs to Discover segment, where I put you on to a new song at the end of every episode. This week, we have a song by an artist named Ashanté. Ashanté's music either moves you or makes you move. A fiercely authentic artist, she's a Mumbai-bred, Toronto-based singer-songwriter and a multi-instrumentalist. Ashanté blends analog, digital worlds, and global cultures to pen rich and intimate landscapes around her voice as her lead instrument. She proudly claims and expresses the complex layers of identities through music that's anything but formulaic, rooted in old-school jazz and funk, interwoven with soul pop, electronica, and Carnatic noodling. Ashanté has lent her vocals to Bollywood movies and featured on Rolling Stone magazines, but what truly makes her light up is the ability to connect human beings to themselves and to each other and to the world through music. Princess Bitch Energy, PBE, is an unstoppable, addictive dance track that combines two Toronto rappers, Spitty and Siren Sav's unique hip-hop flows, and obviously Ashanté's stunning vocal hooks and producer Colin Ong's punchy production to create a self-hype track that celebrates women who groove to their own rhyme, stand on their own power, and wear their own crown unapologetically every single day. The track is sonically divided into 3 themes, the first being the perspective of a guy trying to win over a girl, performed by Spitty. The second, the focal theme, being the hook, that's the girl's commentary on how society perceives her, a strong, focused woman as being too much, but that doesn't faze her, performed by Ashanté. And the third theme being her inner dialogue that chooses to focus on her blessings, work on her self-improvement, and keep building her kingdom, performed by Siren Sav. But let's get right into it. This is Princess Bitch Energy by Ashanté.
Late night sleepless, party with the demons, midnight creeping, who you wanna be with, where you wanna be to feel the frequency, wide awake dreaming, time is all I'm fiending, time with you is healing, you could use a seasoning, come and see what you can really mean to me.
Ha, ha, bitches hate me cause they ain't me, I'm that special kind of lady, call me crazy but my goals ain't hazy, it don't faze me. Ha,
If you want to hear the rest of this song, I have the link in my caption for you to go and do just that. Make sure to follow the socials of everyone involved in the song at Ashante Music, at Spitty95, at Siren Sav, and at beat.cave. And make sure to check out Ashante's link tree in the caption below. Also, she is currently recording her debut EP that explores these themes. And it's a sonic documentation of her multicultural upbringing, which is set to be released sometime in 2024 this year. So again, the links will be in the caption, so make sure to check it out. And thanks for listening. If you want your song to be on the Maybe You Can Relate Songs to Discover segment, make sure to click the link in my bio, go to the MYCR Songs to Discover form, fill it out, and we'll go from there. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.